Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and to those who are watching on the streaming service. This is the meeting of the Planning Committee of Mid Sussex District Council, timed for today, the Thursday, the 8th of February at 4 p.m. My name is Mike Kennedy. I'm the Vice Chairman of this committee, and today I'm sitting in for Councillor Gary Marsh, who cannot be with us, who is the usual Chairman of this committee. I'd like to suggest that we appoint Councillor Dick Sweatman as the Vice Chair for today, and I hope I can have agreement for that. Thank you. Right, we'll begin with the agenda for today, which is firstly to receive apologies for absence, and I've had apologies from Councillor Marsh, but also from Councillors Cherry and Hussain. Moving on to the second item on the agenda, this is to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any of the items that are currently on the agenda. Does anyone have any declarations? Councillor Debelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I must declare an interest on the final matter, which is DM 233073, 18 The High Street, East Grinstead. In that, I was seconder to calling this in. However, I have remained completely unpredetermined because all I really wanted was to make sure that this was properly looked at, but I remain completely unpredetermined on it, if that's okay. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Debelle. That brings us on to item 3 on the agenda, which is the minutes, or agreeing the minutes of the previous meeting that was held on the 11th of January. Now, I wasn't at that meeting, but there was a suggestion for an amendment to the draft minutes, which is on, I think, the 4th page of those minutes, suggested by Councillor Brown, and it's the insertion at the end of paragraph 3 of the words, in relation to the existing public right-of-way, an additional condition shall be included such that a section 257 order, in accordance with the Town and Country Planning Act of 1990, shall be agreed prior to the occupation of the first dwelling. Now, the officers, I understand, are happy with this suggested amendment, and can I take it that we agree this? Agreed. Thank you very much. Then I'll mark the minutes and I'll sign the minutes shortly as agreed for the 11th of January. Next, item 4 is to consider any items that the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business, and there are none. This brings us on to item 5 on the agenda, the application in relation to Barn Cottage Pavilion, on Barn Cottage Lane at Haywards Heath. Could I invite one of the officer dealing with this case, Anna Tidy, to introduce the report?
So first of all, there is an update on the update sheet. It just relates to some plans. There have been some annotations added to the location plan and the block plans, and also additional plans of the existing pavilion have been provided. So those are the changes to the list of plans at the end of Appendix A. The application seeks to vary the condition of number 2 of Planning Permission DM 211758 for a mixed-use purpose-built community centre with use by day nursery and outdoor play area not attached to the existing pavilion building. So the application site is land to the south of the existing pavilion and play area at Barn Cottage Lane off America Lane in Haywards Heath. And this application follows a previous approval under DM 211758 for a similar new community centre, which is a mixed-use purpose-built community centre for use by nursery and formerly having a adjoining tunnel. The permission under DM 211758 was dated the 13th of August 2021. So this remains extant, and the application is being reported to the Planning Committee as Mid Sussex District Council is the landowner. So taking slide 1, which is up on the screen there, the site of the new building is outlined in red. It's located to the south of the existing pavilion building, which is in use as a nursery with an associated outdoor play space to the north of that building. And to the north of that still, there's an existing public outdoor child's play area with swings and other play equipment and an outdoor gym area. The plan indicates that the new location for the Octagonal Youth Centre, go to the next plan, the Octagonal Youth Centre is just shown on that plan. I'll point out there, just off an existing path, and the new location is shown on the next plan for that octagonal shelter to be repositioned on the site closer to the road junction with America Lane. This plan also shows new paths being provided for the new centre, coming in with the access and entrance point at the south end of the building. This plan shows the existing pavilion, the floor area and the layout of the existing unit there. And this shows that it's a fairly simple building with a half-hip roof line and brick walls. That's the existing pavilion. And this is the approved plan under DM 211758, which includes brick elevations and also vertical timber cladding, a dormer window, roof lights, and a larger amount of glazing on the elevations, particularly on the roadside. The proposed ground floor plan show the new building to have a central full height hallway, new office spaces, and also a meeting room, kitchen, 3 toilets, and then an upstairs area to accommodate a viewing platform with windows in the dormer. The roof line of the proposed building now incorporates solar panels, which are located on each roof slope above the line of the roof lights. So as it is now proposed, the building has been a little simplified in that it's now a brick building with no external timber cladding, but with brickwork feature areas. The porch on the south elevation to the main doorway, and that will be served by the new pathway. Sorry about the quality of the photographs. It was a very dark and wet day when I took these, but this is the existing pavilion that is down there, and this just shows the shelter, the octagonal shelter, which is going to be repositioned. So just an idea of the existing brick building with the tile roof, which is going to be replicated in the new building. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anna. So there are no speakers in respect of this application. No representations have been received. It's been called in largely, I think, because it's owned or land owned by Mid Sussex District Council. Would anyone care to comment? No? Could I?
Approval, Chairman.
Thank you. Could I then have a proposer and a seconder? Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It seemed just an opportunity to ask what's the intention with regard to the existing building, since, am I right in thinking that what's going on there is going to be transferred to the new building? Thank you.
I'm not certain about that. I think the existing building is going to stay as is and is going to continue to be used, but perhaps you can tell us, Hannah.
That's my understanding as well, that the existing building is staying and that the nursery use is continuing in there. But this is a multifunctional building, this new pavilion as such. So it has facilities to take children, but it also will be used by the Scouts, as I understand it. So I think it's a more of a multi-purpose community centre, as I understand it.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Brown, happy with that?
Very much so.
Thank you. Good, then can I take this to a proposal and seconder?
I'd like to propose that, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sweatman to propose and Councillor Hitchcock seconding. Could we then vote on it, please? Under this new system, I can't tell who's voted and who hasn't. It's 9 at the moment, and we are 9 as I see it. We're 3 absentees, so 9 of us, so it's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Oh, it's on the screen.
Oh, it's now on the screen. Thank you. That's good. Can we move on to item 6 then? This is the application in respect of Hurstcliffe Point Cricket Club. And it relates to the laying of a patio in front of the existing building with a small path at the side leading from the patio down the side of the building to a storeroom. This land, I think, is also owned by Mid Sussex District Council, which is why it's been reported to the committee. I'm not sure if do we need a presentation on this? Has everybody read the papers? Is there anything you'd like to say at the moment, Andrew?
Well, I recommend approval, Chairman.
If no one else wants to comment, no. Well, there'll be a proposal again from Councillor Sweatman, second by Councillor de Bell. Can we then take a vote on it, gentlemen, ladies? Have we all voted? Yes? Then that is also carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Which brings us on to item 7 on the agenda, the Little Abbotsford area at Isaacs Lane in Burgess Hill.
Just need to wait for Rachel to come. This is Rachel.
Rachel, would you like to give us a short presentation on this application, please?
Thank you. This is for Little Abbotsford, Isaacs Lane, Burgess Hill, West Sussex. The application is for approval of reserve matters following Section 73 application DM 230151 to vary in outline approval and position of an access under DM 193234 and the erection of 9 dwellings relating to appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. And the amended drawings were received for this in April 2023 with additional boundary treatment, amended landscape and site plans received in May 2023 and an amended site plan which included GIAs received in July 2023. So moving on to slide 2 shows the location plan. And you can see the red edge boundary and you can see the former buildings within the site, which included the existing dwelling, which has now gone, and some outbuildings to the northwestern corner. You can see from the map on the right-hand side of the slide the location of the application site in relation to the built-up area boundary as defined in the district plan, which is defined by this black line here, and the site is here. So you can see that the application site is well within the built-up area. Slide 3 I included because it shows the master plan showing the layout for the proposed Brookley development on land adjoining Little Abbotsford. And the blue arrow identifies the application site, and the blue lines that you can see are the perimeters for the residential development. The yellow lines, dotted lines, indicate the highway network within the Brookley development. Slide 4 shows the existing and proposed site plan. And this slide shows the buildings that once existed with the red dotted lines, the existing dwelling here and then the outbuildings here, as you've seen on the previous slide. And it shows the proposed layout comprising 4 pairs of semi-detached houses and a single plot in the northeastern corner, just here. The point of the approved access from the Isaacs Lane and the hard surface areas, including the parking layout and landscaping. So the access, and then you've got the parking and hard surfaced area here. And it shows connectivity through to the western side of the site onto the adjoining Brookley development land, and also through to the north here. Slide 5 is the proposed ground floor plan. It just shows the open plan kitchen, living, dining arrangement. Slide 6, the first floor plan, and this shows that the properties will have a principal bedroom with either ensuite or main bathroom and a smaller bedroom or study at first floor. Slide 7 shows the second floor plan. This shows 2 bedrooms and a bathroom or ensuite. Slide 8 shows the proposed elevations on plots 1A and 1B, and you can see those from where they are within the site, as identified here by the blue arrow. And this shows plots 2A and 2B, and again you can see where they are within the site on the southern boundary, centrally positioned, and it shows the elevations, the detail. These are the side elevations, this is the rear, and this is the front elevation. Proposed elevations 3A and 3B, and these are on the southern boundary again to the western corner of the site. And again, you can see the elevation or detail on the side elevations, on the rear and on the front. 4A and 4B in the northwestern corner of the site where the outbuildings used to be, similar to the previous elevations. Proposed elevations plot 5, and this is in the northeastern corner of the site, adjacent to the proposed access and where the dwelling used to lie within the site. Single dwelling, 3 stories. This slide was provided by the agent to give members an idea of how it will look in reality, with the planting and the shared surface for cycle and pedestrian accessibility and where the access comes in. And this is a similar slide which shows direct from Isaacs Lane how it will appear from the street scene. And more internally within the development site, you can see through from Isaacs Lane to the western development, the western side of the application site, on land of the Brookley development proposals. And you can see landscaping and planting within the site and parking and a shared surfacing for pedestrians and for vehicles. And these are photographs I took this morning of the site. The site has been cleared and building works have commenced. My final slide is a recommendation, which is that the reserved matters consent be approved subject to conditions set out in Appendix A. And I've just got a small note to share with you all, which is that you'll all be aware that legislation requires the application to be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material circumstances indicate otherwise. The executive summary and conclusion in my committee report summarises the application proposal and planning issues. However, this is a reserved matters application for the consideration of details relating to the layout, scale, appearance and landscaping for the development of 9 dwellings. The development is acceptable in principle given that outline planning permission has previously been granted on this site, including the details of access and an indicative layout as proposed under the current reserved application before you now. The layout now offers a more holistic use of the site, with dwellings spread out across the site. The dominance of vehicular movement has been reduced and priority is given to pedestrian footpaths and connectivity across and through the site to the west and north adjoining the Brookley site. In terms of scale, our council's urban designer has commented that the proposed scale and massing is appropriate and in keeping with the future Brookley Development Master Plan indicative proposals. It takes on board the heights and proportions of buildings on the adjacent land. The appearance of buildings recognises the mixed architectural styles and varying palette of materials and vernacular of buildings in the wider Burgess Hill area. It is considered that the proposed contemporary style and use of traditional materials will complement and be sympathetic to the locality in this respect. The proposed landscaping seeks to retain existing vegetation, including hedgerows and oak trees where possible, especially to the north and southern boundaries. It also includes a mixture of ornamental and native planting where appropriate, and a mixture of hard surfacing materials to differentiate footpaths, garden areas and driveways. This is all considered to be acceptable. And the other issues that I included within my report that are of material consideration were space standards, sustainability, residential amenity, highways, ecology, flood risk and drainage, and infrastructure provision, and they were all resolved to be acceptable and meet the criteria of adopted development plan policies, the supplementary planning documents and national policy contained within the National Planning Policy Framework. As said above, the application is considered to be acceptable and it is recommended that permission be granted. That brings my presentation to a close. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Rachel. As you will have seen in the executive summary, paragraph 2.1, the committee that dealt with this matter, indeed some of you may have been sitting on it, on the 14th of April in 2022, was that this should be referred back to the committee should there be any reserved matters with this application, and they should be determined by the committee. We have no representations. I don't know if anybody wants to make any comments. There's no speaker on this. Are there any questions or observations? Councillor Brown.
Thank you. I've got 2 little questions. The first one's on page 34. Relates to the town council comment. They say, lack of sustainable transport, no cycle paths, bus routes, nor footpaths to the site, resulting in the need for private car. And I'd ask, surely that's not correct because it's connected to the Brookley development. So, or is it? That's my first question. The second question is on page 63 and it relates to the drainage. And I'm a bit confused about that. And I can see, well, I suspect, again, the question is all the attenuation and for the drainage is presumably will be under the central car parking area. But there's a comment by the drainage engineer about the ditch being needed to be agreed with a third party. And I just wondered how confident we were about that. So, thank you.
Councillor Brown, thank you. Can you help us with that, Rachel?
That automatically come on. So with regards to your first question, which is concerning the cycle paths, there is a condition that was attached to the Outline Planning Commission that requires no dwelling to be first occupied until the cycle path is implemented for the Brookley development. And there are plans that show on the Brookley development that there is a cycle path that runs along the frontage of Isaacs Lane and the application site, and it links with the Brookley development to the south. So there is a cycle path in place. With regards to your second question for drainage, there is a condition attached to the Outline Planning Permission, the details of which have been submitted under a separate application, which is being considered now by our drainage team. In fact, I received further information only yesterday, and that's with the drainage team at the moment. You're correct in saying that the comments that came back from our drainage team, the last set of comments, referred to it being a third-party matter. And that's as far as I've got with it. It's left in the hands of the drainage team to review the additional information that's come in. But it's not, as I understand it, a matter that can't be resolved, because it's a matter for the applicants and the Brookley development to resolve and the landowners to resolve. But it will be addressed, and the condition will not be discharged until the drainage team is satisfied that the information we've got meets the requirements that are in place.
Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Would I be right then in thinking that the original conditions cover this? That's what you're saying in a nutshell. And you're also saying that there might be a further planning application related to it? No. No, it's covered by the original conditions.
Yes, not a further planning application. There's a current application for the discharge of the conditions relating to the outline application that had a drainage condition requesting further information to be submitted, which is currently being considered now.
Councillor Brown, thank you. Councillor Henwood.
Thank you. Is it on? I'm a bit confused. Page 53, I'm quite confused on item 12.121, where it says the applicant cleared the site and removed all its vegetation and buildings prior to the requirements of planning condition 15. So I probably need to know what planning condition 15 was, because then I'm further confused, because on page 54, 12.127, it says the site has now been assessed on the ecological impact assessment that was undertaken prior to clearance. So I'm not too sure if there was assessment, a detailed assessment was made before clearance, so that there could be a proper assessment and mitigation process. I'm just very confused by those. And first of all, condition 15, presumably, that's very relevant. Could I, thank you, Chairman, just for explanation, clarity.
Again, can you help us, Rachel?
Yes, I can. So condition 15 was attached to the Outline Planning Permission, and that required a scoping survey, ecological impact assessment to be submitted prior to the works commencing on site. The site was cleared, and therefore the mitigating issues and details that were recommended as part of that ecological impact assessment were not carried out. And therefore, we had a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So the council was notified then by the agent's ecologist and said, who advised the council that their ecological impact assessment was no longer valid because the site had been cleared. So in order to resolve the situation and move forward, discussions were had between the applicant and consultees, in other words, the council's ecologist and Nature Space Partnership. And they have subsequently removed their objections because they advised that the applicant needed to provide an updated ecological impact assessment for consideration of the ecological enhancement measures that were included as part of the first EIA, taking it back to the original baseline survey, pre-site clearance of the site. And the applicant obtained a district licence from Nature Space with regards to the Great Crested Newts. As a result of carrying out those works, the council's ecologist and Nature Space Partnership that were then reconsulted and they withdrew their objections. And there's now another condition recommended, ecological condition recommended by the council's ecologist, which is attached to this permission.
Okay.
Councillor Henwood.
I'm just curious about when was this baseline initially done, that they've gone back to refer to the ecological situation? When was that actually done? Before clearance, presumably?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was done at the time that the first ecological impact assessment was put together.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Chairman,
Which was pre the application being submitted. The application was validated January 2023, so prior to that.
okay. I just think it's absolutely regrettable that the site can be cleared before any further action is, before there's an ecological. I just wanted to point that out, if we can say regrettable that that can occur and does occur. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, I agree entirely. And is there any explanation as to why that happened? What was the excuse?
There wasn't one given.
Okay. Any other observations? Councillor Brown again.
I'd just like to say that I agree with that as well. Would it be appropriate for the committee to make some comment on this at this stage?
Yes, I'm sure we certainly could make a comment. Anyone else wanting to make an observation on this? Councillor de Bell.
Mr. Chairman, I was just wondering if we could add a caveat that, say if the committee was minded to agree, provided that that condition was met, would that satisfy the committee, I wonder?
Sorry, I assume the condition is there to be met at the moment.
Ecology condition that has been that has been given to us as officers by the council's ecologist, and that has been included in any planning decision that gets issued.
That's fine.
Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, just a quick question for Rachel. The clearing of the site, did that affect any of the trees? I know that the trees, some of the trees were particularly important, so did it affect the trees?
So the trees that were to be retained are around the perimeter of the site, and there are some oak trees, and I've been there this morning, and the tree officer's been out on site as well, and those trees are still in situ, so they're still there. There are protection measures around them. They're not ideal, but they are there.
Councillor Henwood again.
Well, I take on board Councillor de Bell's comment about condition, another condition, but I still think the committee should assert some sort of line about how this particular behaviour is unacceptable to clear a site before a full. I think, can we not add something to our comments?
Well, certainly if the committee is in agreement with that sort of direction of travel, I'm sure we can draft something and send it to the applicant.
To the applicant. And Chairman, in addition, of course, I'm on to informatives, we would hope that there would be provision for grey water recycling and provision for alternative energy, because it's not mentioned. Is that acceptable in this particular reserve matter situation?
Shall I?
I thought it was included,
It is.
Rachel, yes.
Within my report, I've included a section on sustainability, and it talks about that the development achieves a fabric-first method, which is high levels of insulation and air tightness, mechanical ventilation with heat recovery. It talks about orientation, east-west, and optimum uniform outputs from solar gain, PVs, air source heat pumps. And it goes on to say that under building regulations, Part L and Part S, then that further will achieve those zero carbon measures.
Okay, but. Chairman, yeah, that's brilliant about that. What about the water situation?
So at
as we
para
know?
12.79,
Yes.
it says in respect of water usage fixtures, these will be designed to reduce general water usage by the future occupants. It is intended that measures will be integrated into the final design to ensure that water usage is limited. That's what they've included within their design and access statement.
Okay. But Chairman, this is in addition limited in that we're looking at a process whereby water is recycled within the system. So it's another additional thing. We had talked about this previously, and we said that we could actually put some sort of informatives in to bring this up to people's awareness. Thank you.
Isn't this part of the building regulations in any event? No?
The building, Part L seeks to ensure sustainable measures within the development. And Part S is to do with electric vehicle charging points. With regards to water usage itself, I'm not sure. Don't know if Steve, I haven't got the answer to that.
Can you help us on that, Steve?
So, yeah, I mean, I think in terms of what's presented with the application, we are looking at the reserve matters of the design, layout, landscaping of the site. And I think in terms of what's been mentioned by Councillor Henwood and seeking to go beyond our own policies and perhaps what the building regulations are saying, we could flag these things up to developers, but we can only work with the current policies that we've got in the district plan rather than what's coming down the line in the emerging district plan. So I think we've addressed it as far as we can at the moment. In the future, I think we will be able to go further, but not at the moment.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Hitchcock.
Yeah, can I come back to site clearance? And I want to ask Steve a question, please. This is not uncommon, Steve, throughout the land. We know that from our past experiences. Have you got a view on how it could be addressed within the process of application?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a general question, I think as members, I'm sure, are aware, biodiversity net gain, national requirement for biodiversity net gain is coming into play very soon in terms of major developments, and then a little bit later for minor developments. And within the legislation relating to that, it does refer to baseline, working out where your baseline is and the legislation is drafted to prevent people going on site, clearing it, removing anything of biodiversity interest. So the legislation is drafted so that even if you were to do that, the baseline wouldn't be as a cleared site with nothing on it. It would be as it was before. So I think in terms of how everything will move forward nationally, the way the legislation is drafted will prevent people from gaining any advantage by clearing a site, if you think clearing a site is an advantage. So the legislation will prevent that from happening.
And in between then and now? Because it is an issue, and it's done to actually achieve an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, we would have to work with the planning conditions that are on existing consents and what they refer to. Obviously, if you've got protected species on a site, you can't just get rid of them, whether it's great crested newts, bats, or whatever it might be. They're all protected by separate pieces of legislation, so that's all there in place now, that you can't just go in and clear sites in that manner. If you had a wooded site, you'd need a separate licence from the Forestry Commission if you're removing over a certain volume of timber. So there are lots of other pieces of legislation in addition to planning legislation in play. I think that's probably all I can say in answer to the sort of general question.
Okay, thanks.
Any other observations or comments?
Recommend approval, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Swetman. Would anybody care to second that? Councillor Hitchcock? Thank you very much. Could we go to a vote then? Have we completed our voting? 2 abstentions and 7 in favour, no against. So the motion is carried. Now, before we move away from this one, is there any merit in sending some sort of warning shot across the bows of this applicant in respect of the site clearance?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. If that's the wish of the committee, we can certainly draft something to say that wasn't acceptable, what happened in terms of a site clearance before work should have commenced. I mean, I think we've told them that. But if the committee want that message to go out from members.
Well, the mood of the committee certainly seems to be, from nodding of heads and words, etc., that we should at least say that we're disappointed, if not more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
To know
that's
what
fine,
has
that can be
happened.
done.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you very much indeed. That brings us on to item 8 on our agenda, page 75 of the bundle of materials. And this is in respect of an application at 18 High Street, East Grinstead, for a proposal that 2 entrance doors be inserted to access the retail units at that address, in addition to the door that is already there. We have Andrew is with us, Andrew Horrell, the officer, and Andrew, would you care to outline your report? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As issue states, this application is in relation to 18 High Street, East Grinstead. This is an application for the installation of 2 additional doors to replace the existing front windows. The reason that this is being...
Sorry, Chairman, you just need to log Andrew in on the microphone.
Thanks, Andrew. Go ahead.
Sure. So yes, as you say, this is in relation to the installation of 2 additional front doors to replace the existing front windows. The reason this is being considered at this committee, as previously outlined in the committee, is that it was called in by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor DeBell if it was up for refusal. The existing commercial building outlined in quite faint red, but it is outlined in red, is the mid-terraced unit within the conservation area of East Grinstead. Neighbouring 16 and 22 to 24 are both listed buildings. The East Grinstead Conservation Area appraisal outlines that 16 and 18 were once a pair, but number 18 was destroyed during the Second World War and was rebuilt to blend in with Grade 2 is adjoining number 16. So the existing arrangement of the building is a central door in the with then internal doors to both the first floor flat and the existing units with bay windows with the stool risers below. The proposed arrangement is to block up the internal doors to the units and create 2 additional doors to the front. As you will see, this is the existing style is characterises the conservation area with single doors with windows usually to the side with store risers below. The East Grinstead Conservation Area appraisal outlines that this style of frontage is a special feature of the conservation area. The installation of these 2 doors is deemed to be out of character with the area and would change the broad consistency of the frontage of this part of the conservation area. And it should also be noted that the vast majority of the buildings on this side of the High Street are listed. The conservation officer in her comments has identified the harm to the conservation area and the adjacent listed buildings to be less than substantial, in line with the test set out within paragraph 208 of the MPPF. And the harm identified is not considered to be outweighed by the public benefits of the scheme. This is a close-up of 22 to 24 on your right, and slightly further down, that's about 10 to 14 on the left, showing the the style of the door in the middle with then the windows to the side with store risers below these windows. So it is therefore considered that the proposal is contrary to planning policies DP26, DP36 and DP35 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan and the EG3 and EG4 of the East Grinstead Neighbourhood Plan, as well as the relevant paragraphs of the MPPF. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Andrew. We have one speaker, the applicant in this case, Mr. Simon Pilbrow. Mr. Pilbrow, please do take a seat. Welcome to the committee. I think you've perhaps been told the procedure, but you will have 2 minutes to speak. There will be a digital countdown clock that will appear on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So you have the 2 minutes that will be counted down, and I will give you a warning at 30 seconds. And then... Yes. Yes, it should show a red light.
Not at the moment. Sorry, press the silver thing and we're away. At the moment, I press that start.
Yes.
Good afternoon, councillors. Thank you for hearing this application. Sorry. Thank you for hearing this application. I am the freehold owner of this property. I own 11 properties in East Grinstead High Street, so I'm very versed on the economics of it. It's very difficult to get tenants, very difficult to keep tenants. This particular property has quite a problem in that the door, which you can see there, when you go in, you go left to one shop, right to another shop, and directly ahead to the flat. Unfortunately, the owner of the flat seems to be a bit of a drinker and has been known to actually open his door, sit on his step with his legs hanging out and actually sing. He's been arrested for that on a couple of occasions. The idea of this is to separate ourselves from him and to give both retail units an actual door. It's interesting to note that paragraph 39 of the MPPF states local planning authorities should work proactively with applicants to secure development that will improve the economic conditions of the area. Well, it would certainly improve the economic conditions of the area for the two renters of these shops to have an independent door away from the flat dweller above. The building is not listed, as the officer stated. One went through it in 1943 and it was rebuilt to that style. The idea is to put in two doors in a very similar frame, so you would be looking at something that's almost exactly as it is now, except the centre two panels of the glass would take out the brickwork and drop to the floor to allow you to access either side. Yes, it creates a lot of doors along the high street, but there are a lot of doors along the high street because there's a lot of doors going along there that go up to flats, so there are a lot of doors quite close to one another. Economically, I think it trumps, you know, the conservation argument, really. When that's done, you're going to look at it and think it was there forever. It's just going to look like a black door frame.
You have 30 seconds.
Once upon a time, that shop used to be occupied by Bernardo's, and they had the main front door, and you just sort of went around the staircase. I'm not quite sure how they made that work, but I suppose as a charity they did. Now as two units, which it was given permission for back in, I think, 2008, it really does warrant the idea of two doors. I've managed to keep all 11 units in the high street full. Gave away lots of money during COVID to tenants, lots and lots of help to people. And,
Thank you, Mr. Pilbrow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Andrew, would you care to make any observations on Mr. Pilbrow's comment?
Yes, I mean, as he has noted, the existing arrangement, will be changed, but it should be noted that any change to, internal usage, is a separate matter, as is sort of change of use. The proposed use is to be as the approval that he quoted in 2008. And the economic argument is somewhat separate to the issues at hand in terms of character and design and impact on the conservation area.
Thank you. Observations? Sorry, Stephen, do you want? Stephen?
Yeah, just before members debate the item, just to flag up that this application is solely looking at the physical works that are proposed to the building. So that's what we're considering. It's the change to that front elevation of the property, and an assessment of that against the relevant policies in relation to the conservation area and the impact on the setting of the listed building. So that's what we've got to concentrate on, because that's what requires planning permission. And just the other point, the speaker mentioned the tenant above. Obviously, that is something that could be completely temporary in nature. We have to look at the development itself and its effect, as I've said, on the high street, character of the conservation area, etc., rather than those particular personal circumstances that might well change at any given point in time. So it's to concentrate on those issues, I think, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Ladies and gentlemen, open it up to debate. I think Councillor Swetnam was first.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, thank you, Mr. Pilbrow, for your presentation there. We are just to give you a bit of a background on the high street. This is a very historic high street. It's got the longest run of Tudor buildings in the country. In this application, what we're looking at now, whilst I appreciate Mr. Pilbrow's comments about the economics and retaining businesses, the background is that previously, before the fountain next door took that part over, to the left it was being run as an estate agents for quite some time, and to the right it was hairdressers. And I believe there's a couple of businesses going in there shortly or at the moment. So it has been established these units are quite small. They were originally built as houses in the past. So they're not huge. So it's only to be expected that these units are, quite small units. So like I just said previously, has been used as businesses before. Mr. King was quite right in saying we're just looking at this application because of the impact it has on the setting of the high street. Although this part isn't listed, the majority of the buildings were listed, I believe, in roughly about 1972, funnily enough. So it does have, these alterations does have an impact on the setting of the other listed buildings. And the fact is that a lot of the shops in there have got actual bay windows. And I agree with the conservation officer that to put a door in the front would be out of keeping with the other units on the high street. And I think the harm to it, the public benefits, I always get this the wrong way round. There's not much public benefits to this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman. Councillor de Bell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I've sort of weighed this all up very carefully, looking at the information given to us, and I remember the previous store, as Councillor Sweatman was discussing. I believe it was a needlework shop. All right, Dick?
No.
No, it wasn't. Not that particular one. There have been various designs along that front, but I think most of them tend to be very well kept, in very good keeping. And care is taken to maintain that, which we're all very extremely proud of and grateful for in East Grinstead. I've, as I say, I've turned this around and looked at it extremely carefully, and part of me thinks exactly the same as Councillor Sweatman. We need to protect this, as we've heard from Mr. King. We need to protect this area. But as far as I can see, I believe that this has been taken care of, and most of the fascias stay the same. These buildings are hundreds of years old, and they are very vital to be maintained in that. But I did note what the town council said, and they looked at it and they turned it around very, very carefully, and they felt that the way that this was being done, as it has done before with previous applications, the comment is that they feel that they could basically support this. So I felt it was right to bring that to the committee's attention. Also, Councillor Mrs. Russell wished to be remembered this morning. She was this afternoon. She actually put this forward. She actually called it in, and I seconded that. And she did ask if she could actually come and speak today, but she didn't receive any reply, and so she didn't come. But she did want me to make sure that I'd mentioned that, if that's okay. But no, I tend to think that that this may well solve more problems than it leaves behind. But I'm just as as careful as Councillor Sweatman is, that this needs to be done for this very, very historical site. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor DeBell. Any other observations, ladies and gentlemen? Councillor Brown, then Councillor Henwood.
Thank you very much. So I'm interested in what other members have got to say on this. I shop regularly in East Grinstead, and I know this, the High Street and these little units. Well, I hardly know them actually, because I've never been in them. But I mean, they're little boutique units as I see it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the NPPF's paragraph 208, it calls for us to, you know, as it's been turned down by the conservation officer, the second bit, it says it should be weighed up against public benefits, including, where appropriate, securing its optimum viable use. So to my mind, that's probably what it does, even though it's perhaps not, you know, to be preferred, but it looks like, you know, a lot of thought's gone into this to try and optimise and make sure these businesses carry on, however tiny the shops are. And those, after all, those are the sort of shops that are interesting. If you've got people who are doing little boutique shops, they do attract visitors. So that's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Henwood and then Councillor Hitchcock.
Well, I think the public benefit from enjoying a pleasant street scene, character and design, and I would actually think that this would totally agree with the conservation officer, that this change would be out of character, out of design of all the present existing row of buildings, and I think it's commendable that we wish to keep character and design as it is, and it is of public benefit to walk along and to enjoy your street scene and not find it to be detrimental by altering the design and character of the building. So I would myself fully support this refusal, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Henwood. Councillor Hitchcock.
Thank you. I went and had a look at this earlier today in the rain. What struck me as a photographer was the large sign adjacent to the building, which says East Grinstead Glass or something like that. I think that's out of character in the street scene far more than these two doors. My view is that if you put the door in the middle of each of those windows, it won't make a ha'porth of difference to the high street, and it will enable two separate businesses to get on with their business. That's my view.
Thank you. Councillor Casella.
I would agree basically with Councillor Hitchcock. If it was one of the listed buildings, I could fully understand it. But it's not. It's one that's been rebuilt at some stage, as if he said it was destroyed during the war. It's not a listed building. Therefore, I think that there should be a bit of freedom to do work on it. The street scene, yes, it looks very nice. My personal view is, do most people walking along there give a jot? No, in all honesty. As long as it looks neat and clean and they can get in and out of the shops they want to get into, that's fine, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny.
Just a quick question. Do you know anything about materials? So will they look like wooden frames? I haven't been to the site. Do we know anything about the materials that will be used in the replacement doors? Has anything been recorded? I didn't see it.
There was a design, or at least an outline of what the proposal was. I can't tell you anything about materials. Andrew, can you help us?
Yes, I believe the applicant may, wish to confirm, but I assume it'll match in with the existing windows in terms of there'll be like aluminium, I assume, or some form of.
Well, we should know this, shouldn't we? Stephen, would you want to comment?
Yeah, I think the materials would be to match. If the committee were minded to approve the application, those final details would be reserved by a planning condition. But the applicant, I think, has indicated that materials will be to match with what's there at the moment. But the final details would be controlled by a planning condition.
Good. Any further observations? Sorry, Councillor Sweatman.
Yeah, I think, let me come back, Chairman. I'm a bit disappointed to hear some members saying, you know, perhaps don't really give a drop about the high street, but I mean, so apologies if I've got that wrong. Like I said before, this is a historic high street. If you look at those doors, they are, those windows, they are actual bay windows. Now, you're going to put a door in, and I'm assuming you're going to take out the two middle panes for a door. That's going to leave that much of a bit of bay window. So you've got 3 doors in a very short space of an area there, and that is going to look totally out of place. Mentioned that it was actually not listed, but it's still in the conservation area, and it's the impact on this that affects the rest of the setting of the listed buildings. As regards business, yes, we all want to support businesses in the town, but let me remind you, businesses have been operating in this scenario for quite some time in the past. So I don't think that's an argument to say that businesses aren't going to go in there because of the layout. There's several different, if you've been along the high street, there's little quirks. That's the whole point of this high street. You've got the quirkiness with smaller units operating businesses out of. I'm just seriously concerned that this is going to affect the setting of the high street, and the conservation officer was quite correct, and bearing in mind that's why we've got a conservation officer for. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman. I mean, this is an application to put effectively, or to arrange for there to be 3 doors in this property. So we'll take the central windows in the bays will be taken out, and doors proposed, hopefully to match in, will mean that there are 3 doors, and access will be easier to each of the units as I see it. But access is still available through that central door. If there's no doors, or the application isn't granted, access will still be available through that central door, and then turning either right or left through the into the units. So it's a question of whether we consider that or approve it or reject it. But Stephen would like to make some comments, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to perhaps summarise and to build on what you've just said, ultimately it is a matter of judgment for the committee. In terms of the impact of the proposal on the conservation area, the setting of those listed buildings, you'll see the detailed comments of the conservation officer are set out in the committee report in paragraphs 12:16 to 12:18, and that sets out the reasons why the conservation officer considers there's harm from this proposal, and what impact that has. And your officers agree with that assessment. Now, in terms of how that's all weighed up, if you are, as a committee, of the view that there is some harm arising from this development, the case law is that you have to give that significant weight, because the legislation refers to the importance of preserving the setting of listed buildings and the desirability of preserving and enhancing the character and appearance of the conservation area. So if you do think there's harm arising from this, the case law says that should be given significant weight. The MPPF uses slightly different language, as that's guidance rather than the law. That talks about where there is harm, and in this case, it would be classified as less than substantial in the language of the MPPF. It then advises the decision maker, i.e. the committee, to undertake a balancing exercise between that harm and any public benefits that arise. And in this case, your officers are of the view that the harm outweighs any public benefits. I think the chairman's made the point that if this development didn't take place, you'd still have an existing access that's there at the moment. So I think that probably draws it together. Ultimately, it is a matter of judgment, but it's your officer's judgment that there is harm. That should be given significant weight, and that's the reason why the recommendation is as it is. But ultimately, it's a judgment for the committee.
Thank you, Stephen. Any final comments, thoughts, observations before we go to a vote? Can I ask for a proposer in respect of the application?
I recommend this application be refused, well, agree with the conservationists, sorry.
Okay, you're proposing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Would anybody care to second that? Councillor Henwood?
No, I think, sorry, I said that wrong. I'm agreeing with the conservation officer.
We're agreeing with this.
Well, it's an application. Are we rejecting the application or not? I mean, you're
No.
proposing that we reject it.
Approving the application as it stands.
Approving the recommendation to refuse.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry. Approving the recommendations refused.
So,
To refuse the scheme.
yes, so you're proposing to refuse the scheme. And seconded by Councillor Henwood. Thank you. Can we put this now to a vote?
So we're agreeing to the recommendation.
To refuse,
To refuse it.
to refuse the scheme.
Agreeing to refuse it or not.
I can't tell from my screen, but has everybody voted? I think so. Can we see the outcome? So the application is refused by 5 votes to 3 with 1 abstention.
So we've agreed with the recommendation
Yes, to refuse.
to refuse.
Clear?
Yes, clear, absolutely.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the final item on the agenda, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, due notice of which has been given, and there are no questions. So can I draw the meeting to a close at 12 minutes past 5? Thank you very much indeed.